I just attended the Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within virtual event from March 13th through the 16th, 2025. I'm going to give you my unedited review. Here we go. First up, it was long. And I mean long. Like, I was prepared for 4 days, but in my head, because they'd sent out the calendar and it had like a rough schedule of like 12 hours a day, I was like, okay. But it was a lot more. The first day was 14 hours, followed by like 12, 14, etc. So by the time we were like day 3, we were 40 hours in. And then I think by the time we finished on day 4, it was like 52 hours. So like a lot. And it's just a lot. It's a lot energetically. It's a lot to bring to the table. It's a lot of hours. And I'll dig into more about what. But I also want to say, like, there's a lot of things that it was also a lot of. The first is a lot of energy. It's a lot of like, you are going to be up on your feet. You are going to be moving. You are going to be dancing. You're going to be like putting movement in your body. I saw people in our Zoom chat sharing their Apple Watch, how many steps they'd taken. And some of them said like 18,000 steps. And you have to know this was a virtual event where everybody was in their home the whole time. 18,000 steps. Like, it's an insane amount of energy and movement. So just to dispel any notion you're going to be like sitting in your chair all day, not the case. It's also a lot of like verbalization. You're going to be saying things out loud. You're going to be like proclaiming them and yelling them and like saying things at the top of your lungs, which even for me, alone in my house, felt a little bit uncomfortable, if I'm being totally honest, which probably says something about like some belief I have about being loud. But anyway, it was a lot. It was a lot of that. It's also just a lot of deep, thought-provoking questions. You're really going to be asked to go deep. And if you want to get the most out of it, you've got to be willing to go there and dig. Now, it's also a lot of being sold to, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But by day 2, you're already going to be sold on some other things that you might want to join that are part of Tony Robbins' program. So just know that that's coming. And it's also a lot of really just being asked to live up to your potential. I think if you're sitting here right now and you're like, I know there's more, I could do more, I'm leaving something in my potential on the table, like, you're going to get something out of this event because you're going to be encouraged to go deep and to figure out what those things are and then to move forward. So you get this workbook, it comes in the mail, and you're also going to get a board. And that's part of day 1. Day 1's theme is called Breakthrough. I got to look at my notes here a little bit. Breakthrough fear into power. And it's a big bit about getting clear about what it is that you want, and also the cat's in the bookshelf. And getting clear about what it is you want, but also why you have not gotten it in the past. And to then start to understand that your emotions are either working for you or working against you. And when we've not gotten something that we deeply want, it's clear that in some way or another, our emotions have gotten in the way. They've gotten the best of us. You'll actually look at some psychology and learn some practical psychology, which is really helpful because it digs a little deeper into 6 human needs. And seeing those actually is really helpful because it not only helped me understand how I am responding, which human needs are like at play at any given moment in time, but also how others are behaving and why they might be behaving that way. So understanding others' motivation in those 6 human needs could be so compelling. So at the end of the day, you're breaking through your board. And I'll try to put that video in here if I can figure out how to do that. But anyway, you're like blasting through this board, and like it's really to dispel like any of the fear you have and to like be able to get through that. Now, this was a 14-hour day. It was very long. It was unexpectedly long for me. So being totally honest, at one point I was so tired, I fell asleep. I laid down in my bed. I was like, I just need to take a break. And I put my camera off on my Zoom and I laid down the bed, and then I woke up and it was like 30 minutes later and I was like, oh shit, what just happened? So anyway, just know that like it's a lot, but I would encourage you to like still go all in, like keep inviting yourself to do it and do what you can. Okay, so day 2, I was like already thinking like I didn't get enough sleep, but I gotta like get into this. So I did. I just talked myself into it. And that day is called Momentum, Closing the Gap. And here you're starting to look at your beliefs. So you're really examining the things that you believe to be true, but like that they may not actually be true. And on this day, there's other guest speakers involved. In fact, Tony's not there at all. You do see Tony in some other recorded video, but there were other people. So like Joseph McClendon III, I really like liked. I thought that he was really cool and magnanimous, and I learned a lot from his segment. There's a guy named Scott Harris. There were a couple of other guest speakers, Siri Lindley and a guy named Todd Hartley. Siri was really cool too. And you'll start to look at things like your passions. What are the things that you like? What do you dislike? And then you learn this framework for essentially putting in motion something that you want to do. And it's called decide, commit, and resolve. And I'm not going to go into that, but you get to a point in the afternoon where you work on this thing called the Wheel of Life exercise. And I had actually done this. I'd found it on Tony Robbins' website many, many years ago. And I have a version of something I do with my own clients as a business coach that is similar to that framework. And you're looking at different aspects of your life and really asking yourself, like, where is it now? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, like where is, say, family or health or, relationships or your business or money? And you're examining where it is and kind of where you want to be to set up the framework for how you closing the gap between like where you want to be and where you are right now. And you'll map that out. And that in the workbook, like I'll just show you, it's this giant page that like even folds out. So you get like this giant thing. A lot of good work happens that day. Now, I will say on day 2, this is when they start talking about their other programs. And so there's a fair portion of day 2 where it's going to feel like you're getting sold to, and you are. But I also want to remind you that like, even if in the moment you're like, this is not for me, that's still okay, because there's a lot of people who are there that are like, that is the support that they need. And it is the right time for Tony and his group to actually offer that stuff. So I would say, don't be resistant to them offering it. Just know that like it's going to come up that day. And you don't have to say yes to that stuff, but maybe it will be right for you. Okay, so anyway, day 3. This day is huge. It's called Transformation, Eliminate the Inner Conflicts. I am not going to tell you what happens this day because I cannot do justice to the process, but I will tell you it's called the Dickens process. And it is highly emotional if you're doing it right. It's a lot. Like you're going to feel it in your mind, your body, your soul, and your spirit. And this is a day that like I felt simultaneously dead by the end of the day, but also completely alive. Like dead in the way that I was shedding off the stuff that needed to be let go, some limiting beliefs, some bullshit that like is just not serving me. But really inviting in the real truth of like who I am and like the divine me that is me. And it was an extraordinary day. It was a lot of like emotion and motion had moved through my body. So at the end of the day, they were still talking about some of the programs they were selling, and they did a very late lunch break, which was more like dinner time. And there was a guest speaker that was going to be that evening, but it wasn't going to start till 9. And I made the decision to go to bed. And that was a joyful decision for me. So I missed a guest speaker, but I'm okay with that. Now, day 4, mind you, now we're like 40 hours in. It's 40 hours of like intensive, immersive work. And then you come into this last day. And again, I was like, I got to rally. I want to do this. I want to see it all the way through. And I was really glad that I did. But in fairness, I had looked ahead in the workbook and I was already seeing that some of this stuff was going to be about like your physical body, exercise, food, and like that stuff that I'm already quite educated in and I do quite well. So I was feeling just a little bit resistant again to doing it. And I was also at this point like getting kind of sick of the dancing and stuff, and my body had been hurting and you just stuff. So I was like, But again, I persisted. I was like, I will be here and I will see this thing through. And again, I'm glad I did, because there was one speaker this day, the 4th day, yesterday, that I freaking loved. And his name was Trent Shelton. And he's a former NFL player that ends up getting cut. And he has no backup plan. I mean, this was not a guy who like had other dreams that were on the table. And he's like, what the frick am I going to do? And he tells the story of like reinventing his entire life, but also through tragedy. He experienced tragedy in his own personal life, and it starts to shape the man that he is. And his message is incredible. And if I can say anything, I walked out of that just going like, yeah, it's really important for me to bring my message to the world, because I know that for some of you, you will relate to me, but you might not relate to the next person down the line, right? So his message was just extraordinary. It really touched me in the heart. And there was another speaker that was late. It was the closing part of the day, and his name was Master Co. And he and Tony Robbins' wife, Sage Robbins, came on, and they did this guided meditation that was so beautiful. It was like the perfect way to close up the event. So I can say like a nice tearjerker right there at the end that I really enjoyed. So I have thoughts that I want to wrap this up with. So final thoughts. Did I get something meaningful out of it? The answer is emphatically yes. And like the fact that I'm sitting down to record this video is part of it. I wanted to set in motion some of the work that I want to do. And part of that is bringing you guys more videos. Number 2, was it money well spent? In my mind, yes. The cost of this when I did it was $495. So to me, I'm like, I can easily make one good move in my business and be repaid by $495. And I'm like, why would I not? To break through limiting beliefs, to get more clarity around the stuff that I want to do, to be able to set in motion stuff that I've been thinking about, frankly, for a long time and have not set in motion, like why the shit would I not do it? So for me, money well spent, time well spent. I would say yes, mostly. 4 days was a lot, and it wound up being 52 hours across the 4 days. Now, Tony Robbins and his team have this idea of like immersive experiences being really helpful, because the way he describes it is like, you and I could meet for like an hour a week for 52 weeks, or we could spend 52 hours together right now and initiate something. And I think both have merit, and I understand what this one was. I think the only resistance I have to was it time well spent was just the time where I felt like I was being sold to, and I was not up for the offer. I'm like, I'm already clear on what I'm doing. But I think for a lot of people, and I can only say this because I watched the Zoom chat, a lot of people, they were like, I need this. So it's fine. I was able to manage my own emotions around that, my own feelings around that, and set it aside. Would I go to this event again? No. For me, I would not attend it a second time. I would attend it again, meaning if I'd never gone, would I go again? Yeah, of course. I think it was money well spent, all of that. But I don't think I would go twice. And I think that they offer that if you wanted to go back. Okay. Now, before I go, and I know we're getting long, I want to talk about some controversial topics because these do come up. Is Tony Robbins a cult leader? Or like, is this a cult? And I love this, but no, I don't believe he is. I think that he is a man who has spent an extraordinary amount of his life figuring out how to help people initiate and create lasting change. And he is a coach, he is a mentor, he is a professional development person, a personal development person. You know, and I understand that for some people, they can't look at that and see that as being inherently good. But there's nothing about it that to me screams cult. But does he command a lot of attention? Yeah. I mean, he's really successful, but it's not just because of the money he's made. It's because of the changes he creates in people, you know, and like, I just look at the evidence of my own experience and I'm like, yeah, was it money well spent? Hell yeah. Will I get more out of this? I believe so. Will I get more than $500 worth of value out of that experience? Yeah. Did I join a cult? No. So point 2, do you need to attend more Tony Robbins events? Like I said, they do a fair amount of trying to sell you into other programs. And for some people, that is exactly what is needed. You need more support. I have no doubt that the other programs, even though I've never attended them, probably have a massive amount of value in them. But I'm going to tell you this answer as not only just me as a human, but me as a coach, business coach specifically. The biggest issue with conferences is that people don't come home and implement what they've learned. And really, everything in your life is going to hinge on, do you implement it or take action on it? And Tony Robbins screams that from the stage. He wants you to take massive action. Massive action is necessary. But what happens to a lot of people is they get hooked on the education, they get hooked on the learning, and they stay in this constant mode of taking in more and more and more and more and more into their brains, which makes it really hard to implement. So my opinion is that I'm sure some of the other events, maybe all of them, are awesome, but I think you've got to know yourself best. Do you need more information coming in, or do you need to put implementation and action out? And you've got to understand that delicate balance. So for me, I'm like, I am not interested in more education. I need to get into implementation and action mode. And like, that's what I'm doing right now. You've got to decide that for yourself though. Third, are Tony Robbins coaches good? So he has trained and certified coaches, and I do not know. I've not worked with any of them personally. I have nothing I can say about that. So I will just say I would give you the advice I would give anybody. If you're thinking about working with a coach, you should vet them. So if somebody's coming and saying they want to work with me as a business coach, we have a call so you can vet me and I can vet you, because I want to make sure I can help you, and you should be asking me questions to make sure I am a really good fit for you. End of story. And lastly, just a little thought for the haters, because there are going to be some of you, and I've looked at videos about Tony Robbins stuff, and it's like, oh, like a variety of responses. Many of you just hate, and it's fine. Like, if you're not picking up on the vibes of the Tony Robbins stuff, it ain't for you. Move the fuck on. Like, I really mean that sincerely. It's like, if it's not for you, it's not for you. But if you are a person who's interested in doing something like the Tony Robbins workshop and you're feeling judged, this is what I want to tell you. You're going to be judged regardless. People are going to judge you whether you implement change in your life or whether you stay the same. And you've got to decide, like, do you want to stay the same and keep doing what you're doing and potentially leaving your potential on the table? Or do you want to go do some stuff? You're going to be judged regardless. You get to decide. What do you want to do? All right, those are my thoughts about the Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within virtual event. If there's something I didn't talk about that you want to know, let me know. Put it in the comments. All right, thanks for listening. I would like to say subscribe, rate, and review, but that's only because like my 7-year-old friend tells me that for his YouTube channel. So Hollis, subscribe, rate, and review. All right, see you guys.